or liberation just have vastly different understandings of what liberation is for.
I haven't seen this much importance and attention.
The story itself is a really wonderful, really great setup.
Tractor beam has been engaged.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tractor Beam Comics Reviews on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. It's the 36th week of comics in 2024. I'm Matthew. He's Chris. Chris, how are you doing this week?
I am doing very well, very well. Ready to talk about a milestone week for Star Wars comics here.
Milestone week. Week of 2 weeks of milestone, I should say.
Yes.
Yeah. We're the end is here. The end is here for this era of Star Wars comics. We'll get to that in a bit. First, get the plugs out of the way. Off the top, you can follow us at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD, and at Star Raptor, STARRAPTER. Mainly Twitter. Also, I'm on Instagram. Ion Cannon's on Instagram and Threads a little bit. There we go. Of course, at the SW and all the flagships there, and you see our other socials up top. Was Outer Rim Transmissions? How are they doing? How's it going there?
Yeah, we're doing well. I had a solo spoiler cast, which might interest you specifically, Matthew, because I spent 35 minutes talking into the camera about all the cool Easter eggs and big story moments in Outlaws. I think, from toot my own horn, I feel like I felt really good about the video.
Yeah.
No editing involved, just straight through talking about this, talking about that in what I thought was a concise enough manner. So if you want to know all about the Crimson Dawn tie-ins, the Star Wars tie-ins, the greater scope of what this affects in the Star Wars galaxy, then go ahead, check out Outer Rim Transmission. I think it was 167 is the number of the episode. But yeah, this week we're going to be talking about the unfortunate passing of, Darth Vader's actor, of course. So there we go. We're going to be getting down to that, but we'll also probably be talking about the Lego Star Wars special. So James Earl Jones, if I wasn't able to pull that out of my head and I'm looking at it on your screen. So yes, it's another Star Wars actor, and it's really sad though, because there's also another Star Wars creative that passed away, John Cassidy, who did the Star Wars. You can't see it. Oh wait, you can't really see it behind me.
Skywalker Strikes, right?
Yes, the Skywalker Strikes,
#1.
right there.
Yep.
The guy responsible for that very cover, the guy that was one of the people that helped sell 1 million Star Wars comic copies, which was an unprecedented thing to do at that time in age. So yeah, it was shocking to hear about him because he was only 52.
True.
But yeah, so sad week for Star Wars comics. But we're going to be brightening it up with talking about the Rebuild the Galaxy specials, which also go live on Friday. So I'm looking forward to that at least.
Here's the kind of the trade dress for Skywalker Strikes. This is like the omnibus dress, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah. And so yeah. On that note, So first off, to say. You can see all that at youtube.com/StarRaptor. The link is in the description below. Also, continue with the plugs on the Ion Cannon podcast. Joel and I'm back on Ion Cannon. Joel and I talked about comic books. We talked about our favorite moments in Star Wars canon comics, and this moment right behind us had the limelight, had the time in the sun. It's both Joel and I agreed it's our favorite. Chris, I know you have a different favorite. You have kind of this moment here with the bleeding crystal. You mentioned that, but I think we can all agree the crossover with I Have a Son is at least one of the top moments.
Yeah, well, I knew you had already mentioned that, so I had to pick something else out of the hat for that.
Okay.
There's so many things to choose from. I was like, you asked that question, and as somebody that has read every single darn issue of the comics since 2015, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to know how many issues of Star Wars comics that was.
Well, you can do some math. Today we will have talked about the 125th ongoing in canon, not counting annuals,
Yeah.
That in a second, in a little bit, about the thing about annuals. But anyway, so yeah, I can check that out. You check that out right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. And that was on Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. This coming Monday, we're talking about kind of again another kind of Ion Canon deep dive, the relative weight of different stories in Star Wars canon. Different stories. Some stories are just more important than others and less important, and how that works out, including this moment. One of the pivotal moments in canon, and it was given right off the bat in a comic book. So, yeah. So check that out again, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Underworld channel, etc. It's on Monday. I should specify what day it's on Monday. Before, just very quickly before we transition back into the fun, there was two serious things to talk about. You mentioned James Earl Jones. Also, I mentioned I can't say the word September 11th without remembering. It's geographically a lot closer for you, but I mean, I remember, I was in grade 11 philosophy class when I first heard about it. Went to a friend's house and thought I was watching a fiction movie. That just those scenes from a place, a number of hours away from you, and the world has not become. I don't think the world has become a better place. It's become just as divisive and just as fearful since then, and yet that day and today is always a reminder to say we can continue to actually work for peace and work for understanding, work to alleviate and bring the temperature down in the world, and extend hands of friendship in small ways, hopefully in big ways. And again, James Earl Jones, one of the folks who definitely did that by voicing this evil Sith Lord, but everything we've heard about him behind the scenes, the way he was able to actually bring that energy by having such a compassion and understanding of a character. And so, an integral part of Star Wars. And you mentioned Cassidy there, voicing or drawing this brilliant cover that's now one of the most iconic covers, I believe. I don't know if you did the cover, but it was iconic.
Yeah, he did a lot of the covers. Even when he stopped doing the interior art, he did a lot of the covers.
So, one of the most iconic covers in all of Star Wars now. So yeah, like you said, 1 million copies. I don't know if you have anything more to add there. Again, it's a lot closer to you, and you're American yourself. So
yeah, I was in 5th grade, and I was literally 11. I can't process what that was like. I was like, oh, planes hitting, that's terrible. Like I didn't know the weight of it. All I know is I was pulled out of class early that day, and it was like, oh, that's weird. Why is the teacher getting choked up and saying we have to leave? Like, that's kind of strange. Like this older woman crying for no reason. I don't know what's happening. So for me, it was like, yes, I'm close proximity to this place, but I didn't get the full weight of what was actually happening at the time. But it's kind of insane that like this is an event now that kids will, it's nuts to know that like I have coworkers and stuff that weren't even old enough to be alive at that point, right? Like there's kids going through school, and to think about, you get to that moment in history in the early 2000s and about, oh, this is going to be a chapter in the book about terrorism, about the Taliban, about this whole conflict in the Middle East, and all these things that stem from this crazy event that happened in basically almost like my backyard. I mean, I can get on a train and be at that area in about an hour and 20 minutes. Right. So it's nuts. Again, I was too young to comprehend it, but the weight of it is now obviously something I recognize. But it's a sad day. We have to learn from this.
Mm-hmm. Last point, I'll make it on a positive note. Just before this podcast, I was planning out my itinerary for a month from now, and I will be in New York City, going to the Javits Center, picking up my badge on Wednesday, October 16th. Picking up my badge, walking down the High Line, and I'll make my way down to. It'll be fun. It'll be a great day. I hope. I hope. Make my way to the 9/11 Memorial, and then to Midtown Comics to pick up the comic books from that week. To say, okay, yes, the world is just as fearful, but there are opportunities for us to travel and connect, and There, the safety standards that got put in place, and the Canadian government, the American government, and, this border, it's a line on a map, but thanks to the internet, we can continue to talk about Star Wars comics just
really,
as if I were next door. So, more or less. But
I think Skywalker Academy has a great way of reacting to death. Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force. Mourn them, do not miss them, do not. Spoken by a little green guy from a movie called The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, and of course, mourn them.
Oh wait, was that from The Empire Strikes Back? I might have misquoted that. Wait, that was from the prequels, wasn't it?
Yeah, that could be from Attack of the Clones.
Yeah,
or maybe Attack of the Clones with Shmi. I will say, mourn them and miss them, but don't let your life be defined by loss and fear. Let your life be defined by hope and joy. So there we go. On that note, one last point. One of the things about 9/11 is a reflection on this. Here's a segue. Reflection on disasters and great disasters. One of the ways Star Wars is being able to do that brilliantly is through the High Republic.
Yeah,
the Great Disaster, and then the Fall of Starlight Beacon.
I was just thinking about that. Yeah,
and I was reading. I'd read. I forget what I was reading. Maybe Path of Deceit or Path of Vengeance while I was at the 9/11 memorial. One of those. Anyway, on that note, continuing to reel from the legacy of the Fall of Starlight Beacon is Crix Camerat and and Xena and Lula and everyone in High Republic. Well, not Xena and Lula in this case, but Crix taking center stage here in High Republic Chronicles of Corellia Heir Apparent. It was written by Alyssa Wong, and that is, of course, from Insider 227. We don't have a description there, but I just read this about an hour ago, so this will be an interesting theme contrasts. We're gonna be pretty quick here. I gotta say, so this is clearly set before the Crash and Burn one shot that we just
for sure.
And it came out, I think, last week, but I just happened to get my thing. There's the funny line. If you can't, what does Crash say? If you can't get help, go do it yourself, kind of thing. And so knowing that Crix is the one to actually get on board the Gaze Electric and have his shot at Marquis, and of course fail miserably. But I gotta say, the Crix we get in the High Republic Adventures comics, both the main line, especially the two one shots, is a lot more like the one little moment of his fantasy with scene in this. It's kind of goofy, you don't take him as seriously. This was really fascinating just to see a much darker story with the same character.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Midnight Horizon, also by Alyssa Wong, of course, with these characters. Also, funny thing, Alyssa Wong, whenever Alyssa Wong gets to write Crash Wong, it's funny, you don't often get to write the character named after you in Star Wars, but I know they do a great job as usual. Again, a much darker story about him torturing this Nile contact to get the location to get into the occlusion zone, to get through the storm wall. One big point that came up for me is a reminder that his people, Crix, that path, I forget what the path name is called, but the path group, also clearly a descendant of the Path of the Open Hand.
Yeah. The guy is a descendant. Remember, like the original critter, whatever, the Gran, was he a Gran or some other kind of alien?
Yeah, maybe.
Was part of the Path of the Open Hand with
Marta.
Marta Rose people.
Yeah. And so clearly, in seeing his dynamic with Rue, I don't want to say I call it a relationship, but Crix's dynamic with Rue, who's this Padawan who is former Padawan whose master died during Starlight, edging towards the dark side. But still, either way, Crix having this deep distrust of the Jedi, because he grew up in this society. In part, it's a deep distrust of the Force that comes from the Path of the Open Hand, and connecting all that, and the way he's projecting. No, I don't know if projecting is the right word, but conflating all that with just his obsessive rage about Zine and Lula, and how Zine has abandoned his love for her. It's not love. Abandoned his obsession with her for Lula, who was a Jedi, and feeling this ultimate betrayal. So we really get into his dark soul, dark heart, and the only thing, and also sense of abandonment with Markian, how Markian pulled him up and then slapped him down, and the only thing binding him to working with Crash and the team is is that they both want to kill Markian, and his rage is driving him. And of course, again, that doesn't go so great. It doesn't work out at the end of the Crash and Burn one shot, but I really appreciate this tone. There's just so much, again, I enjoy the HRA comics for what they are. They're not the main demographic, but they're just this short story is a reminder there's so much more they can do with these characters. So I definitely enjoyed that. And again, Rue also going to the dark side, and he can use mind control. That's just his species using the Force. So if he's going to the dark side, that's also a dangerous power to have. So the implications of all that sets up, but even again the interpersonal in this story was really well written. You really feel it, you really hear it, and so credit to Alyssa for doing such a great job in a short space. So I'll throw it to you. I think of Chronicles of Corellia, Heir Apparent.
Yeah, I'll agree with a lot of that. I am saying that this is one of the most darkest stories I've read in Star Wars, bar none. Like, I was really shocked by just the torture of a human, or not a human, an alien, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But just the blatant torture of, let me see, I have some notes here. It's the idea of, I think he was like cutting the guy's flesh, and like, it was like, whoa, I don't think we've ever had that in Star Wars. Like, this is pretty intense. And then Rue just like lets him die by just like letting him fall off the building with the Force, like, oh, bye. Like, holy crap, man. Like, all props to Alyssa Wong for pulling that off. And by the way, this is a two-parter story that we're taking a sidestep away from the other short story with the Jason Aarons and Adrian, and it's going to be the Corellia storyline. But yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, I really like to see what happens with a person like a Padawan when they lose their master to denial. This Padawan is not fully trained, obviously not a Jedi Knight. They're still developing. So it's like, what do they do? They just resort to violence, and it's not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
So, and just thinking in context with the larger story, very quickly, it is these guys do represent this corner, adjacent to all the Jedi characters in HRA. Of course, the Jedi characters in HRA are kind of adjacent to the novel characters, but because they're younger, but they still have their part to play and serving the light. And Zine and Lula. Of course, Lula's left the Jedi, but Crix doesn't know that. And she's still using the Force if she wants. So she's still following the light. So again, looking forward to Insider number 228 if I ever get in it. Also, one last thing, just it's still like all this issue, next issue, all about the Acolyte. Like all the branding, all the marketing. It still was like, come on. I mean, of course they kind of had to, and they had to plan it in advance, but still reminds us that we lost. We may have lost the story, so I'm still on that train. I'm still salty. Renew the Acolyte. Save the Acolyte. Anyways, I think we should move on to Inquisitors number 3, written by Rodney Barnes, art by Ramon Rosanas, colors by Guru EFX, cover by Nick Bradshaw and Niraj Menon. Reeling from the death of his master, Tensuran commits himself to building a future for the Jedi. Darth Vader tasks the 7th and 9th sisters, sounds familiar, to draw Jedi Tensuran out of hiding and engage in one of the strangest battles ever seen. Strangest battles, yeah, I get that. What do you think of Inquisitors number 3?
Oh, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. As I said before, I like the framing of this story where it's like every I was going to say every week. I wish it was every week, every month, every issue. We are having another crack at taking down Tenshu Run. First, it was the Grand Inquisitors, then it was the Fifth Brother, and spoiler alert: this week, the Ninth Sister and the Seventh Sister can't take this guy out. Like, this guy is so powerful. He is putting these Inquisitors in their place. Like, oh my gosh, it's going to take Vader to maybe take this guy down. I like the idea that we start this in it, and I'm very much into Outlaws right now, and I've been playing a lot of Sabak. So we're seeing some version of Sabak. It's not the Kessel version of Sabak, but it's some other version. And you're getting some of that Canto Bite sequel trilogy, Mando Frog type of people in this. Mm-hmm. And seeing these people try to remain undercover is pretty funny. Like this gigantic Duatin and this Mary Allen and her funny hats. It was like, oh yeah, that's these people. And then the vicious way of the Empire of drawing out Tenshu Run was quite interesting, with this planet's biological life and synthesizing some kind of chemical that would draw people to go literally insane violently, where these people have to integrate themselves. But another thing I liked is, I forget the character's name, but whoever is the compatriot of Tenshu Run, they're having this like really deep discussion about continuing the Jedi Order, and then the idea that basically they were used to training in the ivory towers of like, oh, the glitz and glamour of the Jedi, that these high people at the time. And now it's the complete juxtaposition of, oh, they have to hide underground in this place that was barricaded on top of each other, and they're basically in the dirt, and they got to start completely from scratch. So I like to see what like the mindset of these Order 66 survivors are, and okay, we have to establish this kind of institute, but we can't be overextending ourselves because we'll be found out. And as we see, they get found out pretty easily thanks to those droids. But yeah, overall, it was a really good story. Rip-roaring kind of action, a lot of good dialogue. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was pretty decent, especially, I mean, the dialogue in this with Rodney Barnes writing it. Always the strongest part in this, I think. Really nailing, from what I understand, to be a very samurai vibe, in the sense of, everything is intentional. Everything is thought out, and the way of being a Jedi, it's even more so a philosophy. Even lightsaber combat is philosophical, and that really leaning into that. And again, with the name Tenshu Run, so in that fight, that lightsaber duel, I did find it a little odd to watch. And by watch, I mean, if I'm reading a comic book, I want to feel like I'm watching, and good art. So it was a little odd, but there was a lot of banter and a lot of dialogue, and there was a lot of almost discussion going on in this lightsaber duel, and kind of about arrogance, and about that being kind of the way of the dark side. And so I'm still thinking, where's this character going? Why does he basically surrender to say, let's have to go meet Vader? That's kind of what my read is, that he actually surrenders to them, maybe so he can have a shot at them. Maybe he can delay shot at Vader. Maybe he can delay Vader coming to this Praxium or whatever he's trying to build. Who knows what? One thing I found so odd then is, like, well, my thought is he gonna go join the Inquisitorius in a way, or be tempted, or
I've been thinking close?
Because here's the thing. There's a lot of this talk in this comic. The companions is the most important Jedi in the Great Tenshu Run. And I think this, it took me a second, like, Rodney, what are you doing here? Like, you haven't earned that moment. It's a new character. We don't know he's the most important Jedi. I'm wondering if that disconnect is intentional. I wonder if there is a delusion of grandeur around him that is going to be his undoing, because he hasn't earned that for us. How do we know that? Again, new character. But the characters around him do believe that, and do believe, that his companion does believe that. And then of course there is that line in the duel. He's kind of goading, I guess, the Ninth Sister, I believe, is this kind of arrogance the way of the dark side. So, again, I'm just calling it. I've had enough evidence here. It seems likely. It might not happen, but that seems to be what's built up, especially if he's put in a place of desperation here, right? It's only just the two of them. When they're kind of sealed in this cave. Thought that was a little odd, why to be sealed in the cave, I guess, so he can go hide, but he's able to get out. It's not that hard, so I don't know how the ceiling, but yeah, it seems like that he's isolated and desperate, and even just with his good intentions, this is maybe a shout out to Rings of Power, and this is a theme in Star Wars, right? Rings of Power, the spoiler alert, the elves using these rings as their best defense against Sauron, and Jedi using maybe anger and aggression, and the anger and aggression itself isn't the dark side. Let's be clear about that.
And that's actually a good point. Let me interject real quick, because that's actually going to carry into our next issue we're going to talk about. The lesson that Luke teaches Ben is literally the same thing you're talking. Using aggression against aggression is not a good thing.
Yeah, and so even if you think it is, and so that's I'm wondering where the temptation is going. So again, I'm kind of speculating for issue number 4 of 4, but yeah, that seems to be, again, because he's this character out of nowhere. So I don't know. And I don't mind that. And then again, what I was telling Rodney in my interview with him, he's built up this character that we've gotten to know, especially with all the characters around him. So yeah, I didn't mind. I like this issue, kind of dwarfed by the moment of the next thing we're going to talk about. But pretty good. Pretty good penultimate issue in the run. Of course, we'll see where if this story gets picked up, or if it's just this one little small vignette, one off, 4 off, if you will. So yeah, do you have any last thoughts on Inquisitors number 3?
Yeah, the more I think about the title of the issue of the story, is the more I think about, yes, we're superficially from the outlook like, oh yeah, Inquisitors, like those are the established bad guys. It's about them. But then the more I think about it, it's like, they've been spending a lot of time on this Jedi character, more so than I expected for a series to be called Inquisitors.
Yeah.
Can he turn into an Inquisitor? Probably, because we've spent so much darn time. I love these kind of stories. We've seen one already earlier in the years with Tales of the Empire with the Miriel in there. Then we're going to see one. Who? What?
Barasafi.
Yes, when I just start speaking like the species or the character or somebody, that's when I forgot the name.
So. I do that all the time too.
There's always so much Star Wars knowledge I can retain these days, and I'm slowly losing it, I feel like. But
happens to the best of us.
Yeah. So I think that would be a great way, a good switcheroo, if you will. It's like, we end off and he's getting, that whole like, you are now an Inquisitor, and then some invader maybe like takes off his arm. Yeah, takes off his arm or something and be like, you will submit or else you will meet your destiny or your doom. And then, okay, I submit, and then we'll see him. This is the 12th brother, and his name is Marak.
Shoot. Oh my goodness.
What a way.
I'm pretty sure that's what's happening
character
right now. Pretty sure that's it. I don't know if that's true, but that'll be something.
That's all I got.
I mean, this issue, this kind of subtitle, Nowhere to Run. One last thing to say, you listing the different characters. Yeah, Grand Inquisitor, he's kind of the grand one, but fifth brother in our imagination, seventh and ninth sister, they're the Inquisitors we've had the most time with, at least recently, right? In Rebels and in I guess it's second sister,
Jedi Fallen Order and all that.
Order, with ninth sister. Some pretty interesting moments, especially on Kashyyyk there. So getting more familiar, more formidable, and then ending with the big guy. He's over there. big cheese, Darth Vader, Lord Vader. With again, also to say one last way to bring this back in. Whenever I read a comic with Darth Vader in it, I hear James Earl Jones' voice. So there'll always be good experience. So yeah, it makes sense. It's fitting. He's been on the cover of all these issues anyway. So
Yeah.
like there he is.
I like the design. I was going to say this earlier. The very what is that, Macquarie-esque or the Angler version of Vader's mask?
Yeah, it is.
The Rebels kind of version. It's cool.
Which fits because it's a story. I mean, Inquisitors we know from Rebels, so kind of fits.
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts here before we dive in?
No, I am ready. I've been waiting for this for all day now to talk about this. I've been waiting
for this for 10 years. No, just kidding.
4 years to be specific, but who's counting?
4 years, 9 years. Ongoing number 50, written by Charles Soule, art by Madabek Muzabekoff, colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, cover by Lynelle Francis Yu and Romelu Fajardo Jr. For the last time, a 50-page extravaganza. Jedi Master Luke Skywalker must teach his student Ben Solo a powerful lesson about the true balance between light and dark. He offers up a tale from the days of the Rebel Alliance that touches on all eras of Star Wars history and brings this maybe to an epic run. Brings this epic run to a maybe thrilling, incredible conclusion. I threw in the maybe here. I kind of fumbled that intentionally. Okay. So, Star Wars 2020 is a 49-issue run. No, okay.
That's one way to put it.
But let's do this. So what I'm getting at is this issue had nothing really to do with anything that had been set up, especially recently in comics. He goes to that back to the fungus place. I didn't catch it. Or fungi. Luke encounters kind of the Force memory of a High Republic character. Yes, that happens. He talks to Ben about actually kind of this fun inside joke. How'd you cram all this stuff in 1 year?
Yes.
He kind of explains it. I like that. I really like that moment. How, it was a great time of galactic instability, and that the Force itself recognized that the galaxy was priming itself for a change.
Yeah.
For a shift. And the shift not simply between the Empire to the New Republic, but I mean, the Empire is the culmination of at least 200 years, 350 years, if not 1,000 years of this decline from whatever version of the Rasan Reformation. It's like that grand scope of history that the Force can tap into and touch on. And so that everything was intensifying as this fun way of saying, yeah, we crammed 4 years of comics into a year of story, with all this thing with the Bounty Hunter War and the Dark Droids and all that. I like that. And then, as a comic book, as a 50-issue comic book, Charles continuing to have this way of telling a gripping, engaging story. I was hooked from the first pages. I kind of knew what the framing device would be. And yeah, it's an interesting, as you alluded to off the top, it's a very interesting character study and an important lesson for Ben that we know Ben will, of course, completely fail at. But, and Luke himself will completely fail at. He will ignite the green on his nephew. And of course, Charles has all that in mind when he's writing this. This sort of, not quite MacGuffin thing, but this device that you can kill, can assassinate anybody if you get a bit of their DNA in it, except that it does that by killing everyone, risking the lives of everyone who
why
that could be a little silly, a little goofy, but I think I found it to be a fascinating way of bringing up the meaning story. Might not even be, we're not even necessarily supposed to believe it's actually happened, it's true or not. It's definitely I think the best thing I can say about this comic is it shows the character that Luke has come from Empire, who's rushing in to Bespin, to Cloud City to save his friends, storming in to confront Vader, and way too young, and he admits that in this, way too inexperienced. He implies it to saying of even if you have a chance to assassinate the most evil person in the galaxy, to harm anyone else, that cost is too high. And Luke has that sense of mastery, that calm mastery, to be able to accept that and to really go take the risk of what has to happen. Yes, to go back into this fungus planet, and meeting Aslan Rel, that was a cool moment. That was again really interesting. Purely calls it the Shriekerai, not the nameless.
Yeah.
And everything we know, because that's the thing with Aslan. His whole shtick doesn't matter who gets harmed as long as these creatures are taken out. That's the thing we see in Shadows of Starlight, right? Where he goes and firebombs this planet because they're nameless there. And Yoda's, oh, what are you doing? Why'd you do that? Don't do that. And so that was the right character to bring in through that, and to have that. It makes sense that he would have
true,
access
yeah.
to that sort of thing. So again, I appreciated all of that. The biggest problem with this is it's billed as a grand finale to this run, this book, and it isn't a finale. It doesn't. We were given this promise that it would take us from that last moment in issue 49 to Return of the Jedi. Just do a thought experiment with me for a second, Chris. Imagine we're told what I said a few minutes ago. No, that Star Wars 2020 is a 49 issue run, and then there'll be a large annual at the end. And as we know, an annual does tend to tell these kinds of intervening stories, kind of standalone. That ending in issue number 49, Leia, let's go get Han. That's a perfect ending. That's fine. That's fantastic, because okay, we aren't promised the bridge. All we know is what we see them next thing we see them doing is they're on Tatooine going to get Han. So that's kind of how I'm seeing this. Again, it's a casualty then of kind of like with a little bit what I was saying with Kalnaka last week. This week, even more so, a casualty of the branding, of the marketing about this. Even what Charles was saying about how he's been able to do something in this issue that he wanted to do. I'm guessing that has something to do with all the flashbacks to Palpatine and everyone he's influenced there. I think that's from his Palpatine story that he wants to write. That's my guess. I don't know, because I don't see what else he'd be holding on to. I don't know if he'd be holding on to this sort of MacGuffin thing for a long time, for this long, but he might have. I don't know. And so again, we're told this. I honestly wonder, and again, this is me just speculating into the internet, into the void here. Did he actually want to bridge the gap? Did he want to do the Luke with the lightsaber again, igniting the green, but in a positive way, in a heroic way? Leia landing on Tatooine as well. I mean, we kind of see that in Return of the Jedi, but getting all the pieces on the board, is that what he wanted to do? And then Lucasfilm Story Group or somebody said, no, you can't. We're saving that, or better to keep the mystery. Go write a standalone story. I don't know. I don't necessarily think so, but I think it's possible. Now that I think about it, now that I hear myself talk about it, so I get that it feels like a letdown. It definitely feels like a letdown because of everything we speculating, everything about the Alderaan fleet. What's happening there? All that. And so, and then using this framing device after the story. The closest parallel, and I got to use this counter. I have to have a Star Trek reference counter here. And I know there's a comment about how it's better than Star Trek. In this case, yes, this is less bad than the Star Trek Enterprise series finale. If you guys have seen that, please don't watch that show. Don't watch that episode. The series is great, but it uses this next generation framing device, and it inserts the Enterprise story into another story. This kind of brings us to the Mandoverse and all that, but also the sequel trilogy. And it isn't, respecting the original trilogy proper. And so that's another concern I can see. But again, if it was just branded annual 1 to 49 and then annual, that's how I'm thinking about this. That's how it seems to work, especially supersized. Great standalone, pretty great standalone comic, I will say. Also, last thing to say, Madabak, the look of Luke Skywalker doesn't look like Mark Hamill at all.
No,
That's okay. I don't know what to think about that. I think I didn't mind it.
Something with the beard is off.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But it definitely maybe took me out of it a little bit. But
yeah,
better than the whole attempt at photo reel that we got 9 years ago.
From Salvador LaRocca, yeah.
So, again, Salvador, you're great. I'm sure you're a great person, but the art style wasn't for us. So, anyway, I talked a bunch. I'm sure. Sorry. That's how I think. That's what I think about this issue. Just kidding. I don't. I actually like it as an issue, but not as a finale. There we go. Sneezing as a prop. There we go. I should have muted myself. I'm a professional, I guess. I've talked a bunch. I'm sure we're gonna go back and forth here. What were your first thoughts? What were your initial thoughts? And then, kind of, you've read it twice. So, how are you sitting with this issue number 50?
Yeah, first thought was like, wow, this is not the story I was expecting. Yeah. I was quite let down, quite disappointed. I mean, when it comes to a story like this, we started off this arc, the whole run so strong, like Luke going back to Bespin, using the Force to destroy TIE fighters while he's in the Falcon, like all these miraculous things of the Force. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to oobly goobly weird Star Wars stuff for the final issue. Like, oh gosh, we're going back to this red planet just for the sake of like flashbacks, this interacting with people. I never liked that idea to begin with, and we go back there 2 times in the same issue. And then we have this new device that is introduced. Let me see, it is called the Grim Rose. And it just seems so freaking far-fetched, man. Like, oh, you just think about somebody and then everybody near them dies? Like, it just seems like such a can of worms that was introduced to Star Wars that was so unnecessary to do. It just seems far-fetched. And I get it because, like you said, it does get the point across of what Luke should be thinking about, what he's doing. And I think for the most part, all the characters get a chance to shine, except Leia. Really feels like she takes a back seat in this issue. But going to Chewbacca and his anguish and like his just drop the blood in now, I don't care. My people were enslaved. Like, I love that aspect. Like, you get to really see some heart from Chewbacca, And seeing that awesome moment with Lando, seeing the rebels go to Naboo. Luke Skywalker goes to the home planet of the Emperor himself, and Lando is just, hey, perfect Lando. Like, I'm gonna just fly by the seat of my pants, try to. Oh wait, I don't even realize I'm wearing the wrong officer outfit. Like, that is so Lando. But like the way that the rebels are winning the hearts and minds of not just soldiers, but of the everyday man, and the everyday man is sticking it to the Empire in the smallest ways that will, break down the armor. Chink the armor, so to speak, eventually, and break it. So that was awesome. I really liked going back and forth with Luke and Ben. Ben just having a story time with Ben. Luke having a story time with Ben, and they're on Ossus, and just like the really cool things that just, man, I want more of this. Like the idea that Ben is going to be doing his trials of the Jedi soon, and like all this really neat stuff of him being the first student and how he's going to have leadership abilities to train the other kids that are coming, like just awesome stuff that's tantalizing. I want to learn more about. And we're just getting to peek behind the curtain for that thing. But it really comes down to the MacGuffin device that really just angered me in a way. I'm just like, why reintroduce it? Like, this run was so good. I mean, we already had the Fermata cage, which was kind of in that same realm. We're like, oh gosh, it feels like some other generic sci-fi. It doesn't feel like Star Wars as much anymore when you're introducing an instant kill kind of device like this that has no rhyme or reason, like how it even works. Like it's just these runes. C-3PO had a good moment of him like using his abilities to translate. R2 was like using the hook to get Luke back in, and like so there's like a lot of good character moments. But the plot was very questionable at best.
But you mean the kind of the plot device itself?
The plot device, like the idea of like what they're doing in the past, like they spent a lot of time. Okay, we have to figure out how to do something about the Emperor. Oh, let me go and get ideas from this Elzar. Oh, wait, it's Aslan. Oh, he's telling us go to this planet. Okay, we got to dig through the crust. Okay, the Empire comes in. Okay, now we got to find out how to get blood to activate the thing. Oh, no, it's going to kill thousands. Okay, now we have to reverse this. Oh, we can't do it. Let me go back to the Red Pit, talk to the guy again. He's going to appear as Lor San Tekka for some reason. And then we're going to end up finding out that we just put it on a dead person's remains and it shuts off. And then that's the end of the story. I'm like, that's how the finale of 50 issues of Star Wars ends? Like, really? I mean, I'm sorry, but like that is not the finale that I think this series deserves. And Charles Soule has done such a great job, but I think, I don't know, like you had mentioned this to me, it's like maybe he is better off doing smaller scale stories. He could wrap them up better, because these longer ones, I don't know what's happening. If there was interference by Lucasfilm Story Group, I don't know what's happening. My only hope is that next week, Greg Pak is going to be able to pull together and maybe give us the Luke scene I've wanted for my whole life, basically, about this green lightsaber, because that's like so questionable. Like, how do you leave this huge plot part of the story of him getting a yellow lightsaber, him healing the corrupted crystal to green? He's got a green, like he's put so much time and effort into like building up this idea of like what the creation of the green saber, but so you're telling me that Luke has a yellow saber and also we see him with the green. It seems like such a stupid, like nerdy thing to be concerned about, but every like hardcore Star Wars fan wants that story for some reason. We've seen a deleted scene. Just you only had to have like one panel of it and I would have been happy, but it just seems like you said, like it is so far removed from Return of the Jedi. Last month's issue 49 was such a great, like, yes, our rallying point. We were excited. Me and you both like, yeah, this is a good moment where we're going to rally each other and ready to go get Han. And then this story just appears out of nowhere. We don't know where this is. It really did feel, you put it really well, as an annual.
Yeah. I mean, we don't actually know when this is actually set. It's probably set a little earlier, even. You know, we don't even know if he has the green crystal at this point. Oddly enough, one thing I noticed is when he's in the mushrooms and dueling Aslan, he's got the Skywalker saber. He's got the blue. You know, if you notice that. I don't know what that was an intentional choice, because you know, out on the Falcon he has the yellow. I'm curious to know what that choice is about. Is that about him looking backwards and the green is about him looking forwards? I will say, you know, it isn't nerdy necessarily. I mean, this is what George was doing, I think, is, you know, that and the black clothing and whatnot. And I'm not going is to say he's playing with the dark side. That's not what I mean. That moment of him having that green lightsaber, it is a culmination, is symbolic of what we see in this story. What I was saying about how he has the wisdom and temperance to know not to use evil against evil. Sometimes that's questionable. Again, sometimes he, you know, with the Gamorrean guards, you know, but it is a sign of his maturity and his sense of, not necessarily a master at this point, but mastery in the Force that's very much enhanced. I mean, that's what Vader says in on the bridge in Endor. You see, you have a new lightsaber. You are indeed powerful, and he doesn't quite grasp how powerful he is, because the greatest moment of his power is when he chucks it. Right? It's I'm a Jedi like my father before me. So maybe even just thinking about that is to say, yeah, it's an important symbolic moment, but yeah, I guess we want it. That's why we want it. I will say that. I wonder if that's what's coming in the next issue, in the Greg Pak issue. And the reason for that, I think one of the things this book continued to kind of confirm for me is that this ongoing run, the last few issues of this ongoing run, are about possibly, maybe, probably not, but possibly setting things up in Battle of Jakku and beyond. We know Ben is born after, or is born during that year. So this is that part is set definitely maybe 10 years later or whatever, how old he is. Maybe more, probably more actually. That everything with Lando and showing his charm and his ability to maybe have connections on Naboo, you never know. But that thinking about the what's it called, the person at the desk there, using that was a little convenient. I think that was very, very convenient. But I like what you said about how the rebellion is capturing the minds and hearts of ordinary folks. Again, everything with the Alderaan fleet. I wonder if we're going to get more of that, because we need more of that now that they've brought them back. Because we've got a little bit of it. We get to get a little bit of it. Kind of where they're all kind of dispersed now with what Leia was able to. They've kind of given up their sense of being Alderaanian, but maybe there's room for more there. So that my point being, this run has been about maybe setting things up for the future. The Darth Vader run has been where everything about Return of the Jedi comes.
Yes,
it's been it's kind of cemented it as, if I'm comparing, as the better run. I think we have one more to go. We never know. It might fall flat too. We'll see. But definitely, everything with Luke and the crystal, but it's Vader's perception of Luke and Vader's perception of Luke as Padme's son, which they had the opportunity to go into in this issue, but Luke doesn't know. Oddly enough, doesn't know who Padme is and doesn't know why he's connected to her.
Yeah.
So they had the opportunity to go there. Goes to literally the planet where she's from, too. And
maybe that's why we know now. This is maybe before the events of Vader. Because we were wondering the last couple of weeks, like, okay, like you have Luke in both these stories that are both releasing every month.
Yeah.
I think like next week, that's what I was thinking about last week. It's just or last month is the idea of like, oh, they're going to Jabba's palace. They're getting ready. Then we go back in time with like what Luke is doing, or forward in time with Ben. I think the Vader story is going to get us like, I feel like that's going to go right with Vader, like on the Star Destroyer heading towards the Death Star 2.
It would fit. It would fit, because also we haven't. That's another good point. We haven't seen anything about the Death Star except for the one couple.
Yeah, it's almost like
they've kept a secret from us too. So.
Yeah, it's almost like, oh my gosh, with all these loose ends, they're gonna have to have another run of comics that are taking place. Maybe that's their plan. Like 10 years down the road, they're gonna come back and explore this era, because there's so many things.
That could be it too, right? That they've decided to. So you can't go right up to the edge. You have to leave a little bit of gap. So that's kind of preparing me to be a little disappointed the next week too. But I don't know. This book has been, that book Vader. This is kind of in the release. We're kind of jumping into this now, a little bit. But that it really has been about getting us to the character beats, the character headspace of both Vader and Luke. Just the relationship, forging that more so. And then it's kind of why Luke hasn't been as involved in this run, this Charles Soule run. And this is actually the most Luke we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
There's always a chance for a flashback in Battle of Jakku, I suppose. Be like, oh yeah, somebody's gonna notice he has a green lightsaber and he's gonna go into like a whole monologue of like, oh yeah, I had to get rid of the yellow lightsaber because it wasn't working for me.
Let's see. I mean, you got the lightsaber here for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like maybe the first issue they could possibly do it if they don't do it in Vader.
Yeah.
It's a quick recap of some high level events, that high level look at what events happened right before or something. I don't know.
Just a little shot. But, you know, again, Greg Pak, he has 50 issues to do that. So,
yeah.
And it wouldn't fill out that's the interesting thing. It wouldn't fill out of place to do it there because he's done such a great job of writing that story with an eye towards the final confrontation on that Death Star, and with that, you know, with an eye towards what Luke means for Anakin, and you know, bringing Sabe in is one of those, you know, one of those signposts too. So
yeah, let me ask you this: is there any point? I thought I remember reading in one of the comics that Luke commented on the yellow crystal. And it was probably in the last 10 issues or so where he's like, oh yeah, if I'm going to fight Vader one day, I'm going to need like my own personal crystal. Didn't he say something like that?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
I think something along those lines. So maybe like Lucasfilm just straight up doesn't want to show us him building the lightsaber because it takes away from like the big moment in Return of the Jedi when he lights it up on the sail barge and he's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Like that's him become a Jedi Knight. Like they don't want to have that mystique taken away of like seeing every little moment of like Luke building this lightsaber because it takes away from the moment. Maybe there's some kind of like thing that Lucas said, you know, you can't, this is why it's a deleted scene. We can't have anybody seeing this, you know.
Maybe something George said, but you know. Also, George also said, "Don't do anything with the holiday special." All that, but I don't know. I mean, we've had that scene for what now 41 years, and so it's not that big of a mystery anymore. Yeah. I don't know. I think it would be fitting to actually show it to us in this in the Vader comic. Almost the same. It's more fitting in the Vader comic book.
Really? Explain.
Almost more fitting because that one has had more to do with Luke's story and Luke's destiny as it pertains to Vader.
Okay.
But, kind of, and Luke's destiny as it pertains to Vader, therefore Luke's destiny in the wider galaxy. I mean,
true.
George.
Do you have
the Jedi?
Do you have an image, by the way, for next week's issue of the Vader comic? Easy to access, because I want to reference it because there's a cool Luke image on the cover from what I remember.
Yeah, I can probably find this.
It looks, it's basically like him, like with the full dark cloak, like the Dark Empire-esque, which is a similar to what we see in like 2 issues ago on the cover of him. So there's going to be Luke in the store. There's no doubt about it. But last we know, Luke got knocked out, but he was saved from the blast thanks to Vader putting like a bubble around him.
So yeah,
yes,
I mean,
that is straight out of Return of the Jedi right there. Like that's him walking to Jabba's palace with that cloak and everything like that. And he's so front and center on that thing that you gotta think that there's going to be a good amount of Luke if they get the same 50-page count issue, and they were billing it as, oh, you need both of these issues to get the full story because it's like that puzzle piece variant that you were talking about.
Kevin Coley variant.
So it's almost like, okay, like we got maybe like half the story right now in a way. Like just don't complain too much because I'll eat my words next week when we find out that he ignites the lightsaber and we spent like 20 minutes talking about this.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of thing, predicting it. I mean, seeing this, I'm actually gonna just do that because we're already talking about this here. Seeing this description here, and I never read these descriptions. I'm guessing.
Me neither. I'm gonna look at this myself. Okay.
The one thing I'll say is this does name all the names in this run. This gives
Leia.
And Leia. But Sabe, Ochi, Zed. Zed's the droid. I guess Slimore, and of course they're on the cover there too. Yeah.
What the heck does Leia have to do with the story? I mean, we've seen her one frame, and when Luke is saying bye, I gotta go talk to Vader.
Yeah.
So there's a chance we might actually see them on the Falcon together, like getting ready to go get Jabba, or getting ready to go to Jabba's palace, or something like that. Would be my imagination.
So maybe, I mean, there's also it comes out the week after, like that's another way of putting it is, today's issue is a little bit of an interlude. The real finale is in this Darth Vader issue, the real finale to this era of Star Wars comics. And so, and again, fitting, it's been, I mean, that's the thing, I mentioned on Monday, I think that ended up mentioning it, my favorite question, my favorite thing about Star Wars, period, is the Anakin Vader relationship. And all three comics have really dove deep into it. And you do that in this comic, does it by bringing in Sabe, bringing in Luke, bringing, the Gillen Soul runs did it by using flashbacks and whatnot more. This one had Attack of the Clones flashbacks, but I think I mean, reaches something conclusion. The Dark Heart of the Sith comes full circle. He's accumulated through the Schism Imperial, and again, that's already saying
this
being laid down is being built up. So
this comic, if you look at them by numbers, there's going to be way more suspense in this book, way more stakes in this book, because we have so many characters that we don't even know the fates of. I mean, you have Sabe, you have Sly Moore, you have the Schism Imperial as an organization. What's happening with that? Yeah. The Emperor's there lurking in the background. There's a lot, whereas the Star Wars issue, it's like, okay, we know what's happening with Lando. We know these guys are all going to be at Jabba's palace. Every one of these characters is going to be at Jabba's palace about 30 minutes from now, or whatever it could have been. Like, whereas this, it's like, oh, this is a much larger story, a much more epic story that is actually getting to its conclusion, like you said. So on paper, this one, I feel like should have been the one we're more paying attention to from the aspect of like the full picture here. So yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, so that's the thing about our attention, right? I mean, we think the ongoing. This is another thing I said on Monday. We think the ongoing run. It's called Star Wars. I call it ongoing because we all know it's just ongoing. Star Wars ongoing, but through these 9 years, and this is going to be fascinating going forward. But through these 9 years, there have been twin pillars. There have been twin ongoings, if you will, that have been at the core and the pillars of these comics. And it's an ongoing run with Luke and then Leia and Lando and company and Han a little bit at the beginning, and Vader and whatever he's up to. Of course, the first one is between Empire or to A New Hope and Empire. Then we go back, and then we go forward here. And so, it makes sense that, it's just as much in the Lucasfilm ecosystem, in the comics ecosystem. This is much an ongoing. It's just kind of the dark side of the ongoing. And here they culminate. But they culminate in this one. And again, I think that's fitting. Again, because this one has done more to set up, to move the characters into Return of the Jedi than, I mean, that's true. We got, the trial of Lando.
Yeah, what does that have to actually do with what's happening for the most part?
Yeah, I liked it, but then here you have Vader seeing Luke, this confession in this crystal, with Luke, you have Luke going back in time to this in this crystal vision to this ancient Sith. That is where he gets this green crystal, by the way. But in this one, you have, you have Sabe reminding Vader of his past, front and center. I mean, she was literally, her job was to impersonate Padme, and so can't get away from it. So, it's just maybe that. Yeah, it's a great point about what our conceptions were about the relative weight. Maybe this is a great point for next one on Monday. The relative weight of these two books, and in terms of relating it to the saga films, in terms of the Vader one had more weight, more to do. Anakin Skywalker is the Return of the Jedi. So there you go.
Yep. And we have Ochia Bastoon. What the heck has he been up to? Because he has been out of the game for quite a bit. So to see him pop up on that cover again, that's going to be fun.
I mean, I wonder if there's even a bit of, with Palpatine there, a bit of Exegol. bit of something. You know, I mean, we have the framing device with Ben here, and that's another point. Just going back there, you know, that like I was mentioning, that gets us into the headspace of where he ends up. With Ochi here, you know, what if there's something about the contingency, right? And this is in strict continuity with the Aftermath trilogy, right?
Yeah.
What if he's kind of involved in that somehow? Because as you know, he's involved in the Sith and the Sith Eternal.
Yeah. And then plus we're gonna have more real estate to tell a bigger conclusion, because now we don't have to have the time taken up by a framing device like Luke and Ben. So this story front to back, I'm sure it's going to be one hell of a blast from start to finish there.
There you go. Do you have any last thoughts on Ongoing 50 or Vader 50?
I think we'll have a much deeper discussion. Like I said, when we get the full picture next week, we could really start looking back and celebrating this entire era from 2020.
Yeah. Also to say, Hieroglyphic 10, Adventures 10, which you know, having just read Chronicles of Corellia again, more Zine and Lula, but we'll only try to take about 10 minutes or 10-15 minutes on that one to give more time to this Vader comic, because it's you know, if this Ongoing 50 maybe promised another big moment, I think this is definitely now. All the pressure's on you, Greg.
Yeah, come on, Greg, pull through. Come on, I believe in you.
You know, because you know, I mean, that's the thing. He had some massive shoes to fill, and you know, of the three, you know, sure, it's hard to say. Obviously I put the Soule 2017 run, 25 issues. Maybe that's the sweet spot for him. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, Undiscovered Country starts to veer off at around there too, after there too. Yeah, the 2017 run is my favorite comic of all time. That Kieran Gillen run, absolutely spectacular. This one, yeah, it's up there. I don't know how to relatively place it. If I want to say it's third, but it's a very close third. And so it's promising a lot, I'll say. So yeah, that's coming out next week. Again, maxi issues. Definitely, actually, I do want to bring, this is going to let me do this. I don't know if it's going to let me do this.
Okay.
I want to bring up this. I think I have showed this. It's not going to let me show this. Click. Share this tab instead. So I can't. So this is that variant, the puzzle variant. So this is ongoing. This is today's comic. This is next week's comic. Yeah, Ben in the middle. I mean, this is a nice little reference. I've mentioned this before. Still with the yellow, oddly enough. I don't know why. Because it's from the ongoing. That's why. Interesting little reference to the finale of Soule's Vader 25 here with Ben, or Ben Kenobi down at the bottom there. Yeah. So, I definitely want. I gotta remember to call an LCS to snag these for me. This is me telling the internet I gotta do that. So anyway, all that to say, yeah, check out your local comic book shops next week. Pick those up. Pick up some variants. Some pretty sweet variants. There's even some Phantom Menace variants still. In other words, because we're still in 2024, Phantom Menace 25. So feel free to peruse those as well. Do you have any last thoughts on Ongoing or Vader or Hieroglyphic 10 or whatnot?
All I gotta say is October is gonna be awesome, because we're gonna get Battle Jakku. That starts probably in the beginning of October, right?
Yeah, October 2nd.
Oh my gosh! So you're telling me, Matthew, that we are only gonna have to wait 2 weeks to get the continuation of what has happened with Luke, basically. Like, that is
spoiling us. What are you doing, Marvel? You're spoiling us.
Oh man, this is going to be one heck of a run for Marvel Comics. So you know what I'm going to basically do? After I read Darth Vader at some point next week, I'm going to make a point to watch Return of the Jedi. Especially now with James Earl Jones having passed away, I want to watch something with Vader. I'm like, that is the thing I'm watching, Return of the Jedi, for sure, to get ready for the next big jump in comics.
Yeah. We're revisiting the Aftermath. That's going to be exciting. Yeah, and I get October. Again, like I was just saying, I'm planning my October 16th. Just going on a walk on the on the west side of Manhattan there. Yeah, and yeah, we got High Republic Adventures 11 that day too, October 16th. But I believe that's true. But also that'll be picking this up. I think it'll be Insurgency Rising number 2 is October 16th. So number 1 is
we're gonna have to go to Midtown Comics, man.
Well, I'm already planning on it.
I can't wait to see that. Like that image of Bib Fortuna is so tantalizing to me because it's we're gonna dive into the underworld by a certain degree. Okay, like, ooh, Bib Fortuna is getting put into the power vacuum that Jabba the Hutt has vacated. So it's gonna be quite the thing to start to see how all these things add up together for this epic event.
Yeah. So all that to say. Such quick turnaround. I mean, High Republic Adventures at Star Course. That's a quick turnaround. Even it was a one shot from last week, but
true
turnaround. These quick turnarounds from Battle of Jakku every 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a great time for comics.
And then, but of course, right smack dab in the middle of that is friggin' New York Comic Con, where we're hoping that they.
Yeah. I mean, you heard it from the guys themselves. We're probably going to get, at least I would imagine, 2 new comic announcements.
There we go. So
and maybe ongoing continuation of what is happening.
Yeah. So all that to say, just on the top of my head to say this, Chris and I we will be there. Our coverage from last year will continue, probably, hopefully, new and improved. We won't try and go live from the floor of the Javits Center and their cell coverage, but we will get coverage Tractor Beam at New York Comic Con, SW at Comic-Con, New York Comic Con. Of course, you'll be making stuff for Star Raptor for your channel as well, but we'll definitely be in tandem reacting to different things we see about Star Wars. I should try and find a way to talk about Star Trek and other things. I should just thinking out loud there, but definitely if you're a Star Wars comic fan, if you're a Star Wars book fan, if you're a Star Wars fan, we will give you the whole rundown. Tractor Beam at New York Comic Con. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a party. I don't know who else from the network is coming. I don't think Ann is coming this year, but we could rope people in. We can rope somebody in. Just decide, just christen them as part of the Star Wars or whatever. I don't. Ben, if you're watching, you're not watching. But if you're watching, I won't. I promise not to do that. But there we go. Chris and I, we will be there. We will. I gotta figure out a tech setup for that. But all that to say, for now, it's been a great episode, great podcast. Getting a bit of a letdown on the issue itself, but glad to be able to talk about it with you as always. Where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on youtube.com/StarRaptor as my primary place to post content. I am just basically putting up comic book reviews. Last week was a busy week. I was able to put up a review for Star Wars Outlaws. I put up a review for Beware the Nameless. We have another young adult novel coming out later in the month, Tears of the Nameless, so be on the lookout for that. But yeah, I'm just keeping it going, man. You can find me over on Twitter as well, twitter.com/StarRaptor, where I'm retweeting gaming things and skateboarding and Star Wars as well. So you can find me over there.
Well, oh my goodness, why do I keep doing that? What's happening here? I'm doing too many things at once. There we go. Yeah, please do check that out. The link is in the description down below. Speaking of links in the description, I forgot to mention the Star Wars Underworld Discord server. We're all in there. Ben's in there and Joel's in there on the regular. So feel free to check that out. And we've got a comics discussion. Let us know what you thought of Star Wars ongoing, of Inquisitors number 3, of High Republic Chronicles of Corellia, either in the comment boxes below or on Discord or on our socials. You can follow us at Ion Cannon Pod. Also as well, you follow at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. Follow my personal Instagram and Threads, MNEUG1138, and personal Twitter, NEUG485. They're a bit more Star Trek and soccer in that. And food, if you're like food, fried chicken at beaches.foodie. That's going to go nuts. I'm going to go ham, literally, maybe, in Brooklyn. Dinosaur.
Oh, yeah.
Going to get some photos on Thanksgiving, so Canadian Thanksgiving. So, among other things. So, yeah. on Instagram. Check that out as well. But again, go to where are we here? Local comic book shop to grab Vader number 50, Hyperglyph Adventures number 10, and quick shout out Jason Lowe, Toronto's Jason Lowe, releasing Dazzler number 1, also from Marvel. It's very Taylor Swift mutant.
Oh wow.
Basically, I know that's nothing to do with Star Wars whatsoever, but I felt like mentioning it anyway. There we go. So yeah, feel free to be sure to go pick those books up. Should it be? I'm banking on a fantastic ending to Greg Pak's Darth Vader run. But that does it for the Tractor Beam this week. See you next week. Same Sith time, same Sith channel. 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday for discussion on these books and maybe more. We'll see. But until then, happy reading.